Welcome to Pathway Church. We are a church in the Claremont community of San Diego, a multi-generational group who cares about families, singles, adults, and kids. Because we know what Jesus called us to do and believe in the way he wants us to do it, everything we do is wrapped around our mission to help people follow Jesus through the local church, worship together, serve together, grow together, outreach together. We are all looking for a place to belong, and we believe that place is the church. So whether it's online or on campus, we're glad you're here, and we're happy to meet you.
Thinking of when we'd ask for just one more story, as you were putting us to bed. Or when the dentist said he'd found another cavity, so you would sit and hold my hand. All the homework, all the curfews, all the chores you gave to me, all the timeouts and the lectures. Mom, you're so embarrassing, but you said I'd make the rules for me one day. So right now there's just one little thing to say: I will always need my mama, even when I've grown up. 'Cause if we're being honest, I've got no clue what to do. So I just wanna tell you, thanks for all you do. There is no one else who loves me like you do. And I'm crazy and I'm too loud, much for my own good. But I'm loyal and hardworking, I get it all from you. And I know, oh I know, I'll always need my mama, even when I've grown up. 'Cause if we're being honest, I've got no clue what to do. So I just wanna tell you, thanks for all you do. There is no one else who loves me like you do. There is no one else who loves me like you do.
So over the last 6 weeks, we've been in this series studying how Jesus made 7 I am statements about himself in the Gospel of John. And we've determined, and we've really saw how that Jesus literally set himself apart by making these statements. Jesus declared his identity. What he did is he is connecting to a specific Old Testament reference where God revealed his name, I am, to Moses in Exodus 3. But also, Jesus connected some metaphors, some word pictures to this I am title, this I am name rather, and it's revealing who he is, how he's going to relate to people, humanity, but also mainly to his followers. So, just in review, Jesus said things like, I am the bread of life, if you remember that one. And what he's doing is he's claiming that people are hungry, and that people are not satisfied in life. Jesus said, I am the light of the world, and he's claiming that people are living in darkness. Jesus said, I am the good shepherd, because people live, helpless, uncared for, like uncared for sheep. Jesus said, I am the resurrection and the life. We talked about that last week, claiming that people are dead, and they need life. And the cool thing is that Jesus never minced words. Jesus always spoke with intentionality. And you see that in everything that he says. I don't know if you have a Bible that has Jesus' words in red in your Bible. I have that, and I so enjoy looking at the red words in the New Testament and see how intentional Jesus really is. Today we're looking at John 14. If you've got a Bible or maybe you've got a mobile app, you can flip open to that if you want to follow along. It's going to be on the screens or in the outline that you have right in front of you. But John 14 is a little different, and this is what I want us to realize. John 14 is different because of the context that he is sharing it in. So what we need to do is we need to kind of frame the context so that we understand it a little bit, and then we'll jump into John 14. So in Luke 22, we read that Jesus sent Peter and John ahead and said, "Go and prepare a Passover meal so that we can eat it together. As soon as you enter Jerusalem, a man carrying a pitcher of water will meet you. Follow him. At the house he enters, say to the owner, 'The teacher asks, where is the guest room where I can eat the Passover meal with my disciples?' He will take you upstairs to a large room that is already set up. This is where you should prepare our meal." So they went off to the city and found everything just as Jesus had said, and they prepared the Passover meal there. Now we know that to be the Last Supper is what it's called. But I always find it interesting when I read Luke 22. I don't know if your mind goes here. Maybe I've got too much Mission Impossible in me or something like that. But it's almost like did Jesus set this up? Like did he go into Jerusalem and talk to the guy, with a pitcher of water? I don't know. You know what I mean? It's like, was that the signal? You carry a pitcher of water and my guys are going to find you? Or it's interesting, isn't it? Or did he just know? Did he just foresee that this guy? I don't know. Either way, it's just really a really cool story. And it says, and then later in Mark we read that in the evening Jesus arrived with the 12. He got there with the guys. And in Matthew 26 it says that Jesus sat down at the table with the 12. Now I don't know about you, but my mind goes to the Da Vinci picture, right? The Last Supper, right? That's Da Vinci, right? I think I'm right on that. And you can just, it's like, they're like TV, like the fourth wall kind of thing, where they're all on one side of the table. It wasn't like that, okay? Just so you know, it wasn't like that. I mean, they were all, actually, they'd be seated a lot different in the ancient Middle East. They were seated probably more lounging kind of at the table, but they were all around the table. They're no longer in public. That's the thing that I want us to catch. This was a private time. Last night with his disciples. These are his last words. In fact, next week we're going to talk about the "I am the true vine," Jesus says. And those were, again, a part of the last words. In fact, John 13 through 17 is known as the upper room discourse, technically. It's where the writer John records the conversations that Jesus had with his disciples in the upper room on the night before he goes to the cross. So when you read John 13 through 17, you have to have that in context. It's just him and his 12 guys, no one else. And these are his last words. And in John 13, when they get to the table and they sit down at the table, we find something happens that just is really amazing. Jesus gets up from the table, John 13, and he wraps a towel around himself and he pours water into a basin and he goes around and begins to wash the feet of the disciples. And all of them balk. I mean, all of them are like, no. What are you doing? It catches them off guard. I mean, he's their rabbi. He's their leader. He's their teacher. And yet now he's serving them. And what he tells them, he says, no, I need to do this because you need to follow my example. Telling them that this is how you should serve each other. I love Peter in that story. I don't have the text for you, but in John 13, I love Peter. He's like, well, then don't just wash my feet. Wash everything. Don't you love Peter? I mean, he's a great guy. I relate to him. And Jesus is like, no, you don't need everything. You just need to learn this. Then Jesus does the unthinkable. He sits back down at the table. We don't know how long of a time took place between. But at one point, Jesus predicts that one of them around the table, one of them who has been with them all this time, will betray Jesus to the Jewish leaders. Now, of course, the 12 disciples, they got to be shocked at that point, right? I mean, what? What do you mean one of us? Who is it? They can't believe it. I mean, the writer, John, who, by the way, was there around the table, this is what he says in John 13:22. The disciples looked at each other wondering whom he could mean. And then we read that suddenly Judas Iscariot gets up from the table and he leaves the room. Now, there's mixed opinions on this. Scholars, they don't know if really the disciples knew at that point that it was Judas, or maybe they thought that Judas has had another errand to run. Maybe Jesus had told him to do something. We're not really sure as to what the disciples were thinking at that point. But there is a definite difference in what takes place with Jesus at that point. We read in verse 31, John 13, as soon as Judas left the room, Jesus said, the time has come for the Son of Man to enter into his glory, and God will be glorified because of him. I will be with you only a little longer. Let me read that again. I will be with you only a little longer. You will search for me, but you can't come where I'm going. What is Jesus saying? He's saying, I'm leaving. I'm not going to be here. And in response, love Peter, verse 36, Peter says, Lord, where are you going? Wait, what? We've been with you all this time. I mean, come on. The disciples gave up their jobs and their families and everything to follow Jesus. They've been with Jesus every moment of every day for 3 years. They have followed Jesus, loved Jesus, believed in Jesus, and now they're a little bit confused as to why he's leaving them. Their entire sense of what was supposed to happen is now falling apart. Their hopes, their ambitions, their dreams are all fading away. All of it is collapsing. All because Jesus says, I'm leaving. This hits them hard. I mean, what do you say to that? How do you handle that? Talk about an elephant in the room the entire night. That's got to be it, right? Jesus was leaving. And all along, Jesus told them that this would happen. He told them that he's going to be arrested and he's going to be murdered. He said this was predicted in the Old Testament, but somehow they missed it. I mean, he'd been telling them all three of those years, he'd been telling them this, but somehow they missed it, and so now they're shocked. This is not the way it's supposed to end. And so anxiety and fear and doubt and confusion all at once just overwhelms them. And I love Jesus in how he senses that and how he responds. Look at John 14:1. Jesus said, don't let your hearts be troubled. Guys, don't let this overwhelm you. Don't let this confusion and this stress and this anxiety of the moment overwhelm you. Trust in God. You've done that. Now, trust in me. Don't be overwhelmed with this, guys. I know it seems like things are falling apart and going out of control, but they're not. This is all God's plan. Trust in God. Trust in me. You've trusted in me the last 3 years. I think you can still trust me. And then Jesus attaches a truth and a promise to this encouragement of trust. Take a look. Verse 2. I love this. There are many rooms in my Father's house. Come on, read it with me. There are many rooms in my Father's house. Now, people hear this, and they think that Jesus is talking about building them a place in heaven. How many of you have ever heard that before? There are many rooms. Yeah, and instantly you think, wow, he's building me a house in heaven, right? So when I die, Jesus has this place for me in heaven, somewhere up there. In fact, older versions, King James Version and others, older versions use the word mansions. Look, it says, in my Father's house are many mansions. Have you ever heard that phrase before? Many mansions. Come on. Many mansions. All my life, I've heard the mansion language. I mean, I grew up in church all my life, and King James is, the version that I remember hearing, or maybe, we went like in the 70s and 80s, we went to New King James, right? And so it wasn't a whole lot of new, it just took out the weird Shakespearean language. But anyway, so that's, I've heard this mansion talk. We're going to get a big mansion in heaven. Can I tell you? Oh man, for us Western Americans, that creates so many issues when you use that kind of language. Not to mention it's bad theology. We American Christians get stuck on the mansion in heaven thing so much. I came across this stat. I have to share this with you. 2024 stat. So this year, this statistic is from this year. Get this. 5, according to statistics of the average size of a house throughout the world. You can just Google it. You can look it up. It's right there. 5, say with me 5 houses in Hong Kong can fit into the average American's house. Think about that. We think mansions. And depending on where you live, maybe not so much in Southern California, but you go to other states and it's like, whoa, dude, like we could have 8 families live here. You know what I'm saying? It's so big, right? I mean, you guys know, you watch HGTV and stuff. I do too. It's like, wow, you know what I could get for $1? Like in Texas, you know, I'm not that cheap, but you know what I'm saying? It's like, wow, look at that ranch. Look at that, whatever. You know, I could live out in Nowheresville and I could have 20 million acres, you know, that kind of a thing. We have this big mentality. We think mansions. And you know what we think then? Jesus has built me a mansion in heaven. We are going to be living large in heaven. But that's not even close to what Jesus is talking about. Modern versions are more accurate. John 14:2, remember what it says? There are many what? Rooms. Not mansions, rooms. In the Greek, in the original Greek, that's closer. It's not mansions, it's rooms. So I got to tie this in so you can understand what Jesus is talking about. Way back in the Old Testament, when people came into the promised land, the land was given to the tribes of Israel, allotted by tribes. And then within the tribes, it was given to each family. But it was given, get this, to each father of the families. So that's how the land was given out. So families would live close together, sharing a house or property. Oftentimes, you would have 3 or 4 or 5 generations living on the same piece of property. I like how the New Living Translation puts Jesus' words. Look at this. There is more than enough room in my Father's home. There's plenty of room in my Father's house for everyone. That's what he's saying. Now, just in case, hold on. You may be thinking, I love people and all, but I'm just not sure I want to live on the same property or in the same house with everybody else in heaven. I'm kind of thinking that might be too crowded for me and I got to have a little bit of space. Okay? If you're thinking that, let me silence your concern because your view of heaven is too small if that's what you're thinking. Let me show you. The writer John, I just started, get this, I ended my study, my personal study in 2 Thessalonians, and just yesterday, you know what I started? I started studying, get ready, the book of Revelation. Okay, I just started it, and I'm already enjoying it. Anyway, the writer John, okay, in the book of Revelation, he gives us the dimensions for what is called the city of God. Basically, if you can imagine like heaven, and we're talking the capital city of heaven. Okay, just kind of get that idea. Revelation 21 gives us a description of the capital city of heaven. Not heaven, but the capital city, all right? When he measured it, he found it was a square, as wide as it is long. In fact, its length and width and height were each 1,400 miles. Okay, you didn't respond the way that I was expecting you to respond. I want you to think, first off, we're talking 1,400 miles. We're going to get this in just a minute, but think about this. We're talking cubed. I don't even know how you talk about like spatial stuff like height. Do you know how far up 1,400 miles would be? But to give you a perspective, from San Diego to Dallas, Texas is about 1,400 miles. And from San Diego to Seattle, Washington is kind of close to 1,400 miles. This city is 1,400 city, not state, not country, city, is 1,400 miles square. Cubed. All I know, I can't get my mind fully around the whole cubed idea, but all I know, that's big. That's pretty big. Friends, heaven, this is just the capital city. That's all we're talking is the capital city of heaven. Heaven is a lot bigger than we could possibly imagine. Heaven is a really big place. There's going to be plenty of room. It's not going to be overcrowded. Reminds me of an old song. Shannon, you would appreciate this. Audio Adrenaline. Remember this? Big, big house. Listen to these words. Come and go with me to my Father's house. It's a big, big house with lots and lots of room. A big, big table with lots and lots of food. A big, big yard where we can play football. A big, big house. It's my Father's house. But wait. There's more to what Jesus is saying. Look at verse 2. Jesus says, I am going there to what? Prepare a place for you. See, Bart, see, he's building me a mansion. No. He's building you, preparing you a place. It's funny because so many times I've heard this passage at funerals. Anybody ever heard this passage at funerals before? But this is not a funeral passage. Blow your mind here. This is a wedding passage. Let me show you. We don't realize it because we're way different now. But this is wedding language. I'm convinced that Jesus is tying into the marriage customs of his day. I've shared this before, but in Jesus' culture, there was a thing called a betrothal. And it was an engagement period. A betrothal was an engagement period of 1 year between a man and a woman, a legal covenant for a man and a woman. And during the betrothal period, the couple was considered legally bound together. But during the betrothal, the couple didn't live together. The couple had no sex between them. And ancient Jewish weddings had two parts: the betrothal and the wedding celebration, the wedding party, which usually lasted like 7 days. It was a party. So the marriage wasn't consummated physically until after the wedding party, the wedding celebration. Only after the wedding feast would the husband and wife be fully married. So what's going on during the betrothal year, the 12 months? Get this. The groom is preparing a place for his bride. Isn't that cool? Now, probably, he's building an extension on his dad's house. I mean, that's the way it kind of would work in their culture. Same property, because it's tribe, remember, it's allotted land. So he's probably either building on his dad's property or possibly even connected. It would not have been odd to see homes that have had extensions built onto them as the kids grew up, because they're building their own places. They're preparing their own places. In ancient Israel, when a son got married, he would build an addition onto his father's house or father's land, so the father's house or property would get bigger and bigger and bigger as the kids got married. So during the betrothal, the groom, don't miss this, would prepare a place for his bride in his father's house or his father's property. And when the place was prepared, the groom would then go with the entire wedding procession to get the bride and take her to the huge wedding party. Now, if you've ever read the book of Revelation, this is good. There's a tie-in. This would complete the marriage ceremony, the marriage, with the Jewish marriage covenant with his bride. The imagery is huge. Jesus is connecting this imagery. Listen to the language that Jesus is using. It's wedding language. Look at what he says. There are many rooms in my Father's house. I am going there to prepare a place for you. After I go and prepare a place for you, I will come back and take you to be with me, so you may be where I am. You see this language? The imagery there. With one clear topic. Jesus is talking about heaven. He's saying, I'm going to go away. I'm I'm going to prepare a place, but I'm going to come back. I mean, think about it. He told his disciples he was going to die. He told his disciples, I'm going to resurrect back to life, which, by the way, he did, right? And we know that from the book of Acts, Jesus stuck around on planet Earth for like 40 days. He was talking to them, eating with them, proving that he was alive, all of that. And then what did he do at the end of 40 days? We see it in the book of Acts. He left Earth and ascended. He went back into heaven. But we know that Jesus is coming back. He's coming back to get his bride. He's coming back to get his followers. He's coming back to get the church. Really, that's what it is. Friends, right now, get this, right now, we as followers of Jesus, we're in the betrothal period. We are waiting on him to come back. And one day, Jesus will come back to get those who love him and follow him. He is preparing a place, but soon he's coming for his bride, the church. Jesus says it clearly in verse 3. I will come back. I will come back. I'm convinced that is end times talk. He's talking about his second coming. The writer John tells us in Revelation, I alluded to it earlier, about a marriage supper that will take place at the end of time, a wedding of Jesus and his bride. It talks about it in the book of Revelation. The imagery of marriage is applied to Jesus and the church. Those who have received eternal life by trusting in Jesus as their Savior will experience this. Friends, listen. Jesus is coming back. He's coming back to take his followers to be with him. Are you ready? Are you ready? How do you get ready? Right? You got to ask that question. How do you get ready? Look what Jesus says in verse 4. You know the way to the place where I'm going. Jesus is like, I've already told you how to get there. You know the way. You know the place. And in response, good old Thomas. Remember Thomas? I don't know if you've ever read the New Testament, but Thomas is the guy that later on, he says to the disciples, I'm not going to believe that he's risen from the dead until I touch his wounds, until I stick my finger in his wounds. We know him as what? Blank Thomas. What is it? Doubting Thomas. Yeah, okay. But I love Thomas. He's real. Don't look down on him. He's just like you and me. So Jesus says, you know the way. Look what Thomas 11. Lord, we don't know where you're going. What do you mean going? Where are you going? So how can we know the way? It's clear. They didn't want to miss out on anything. The disciples didn't want to miss out. Jesus is leaving them, going somewhere they can't go. They've given him 3 years. They've followed him that long. And now he's saying, no, you can't go where I'm going. What do you mean we can't go? We've been following you for 3 years, every moment, every day. Come on. Jesus says, no, you already know where I'm going. We don't have a clue where you're going. What do you mean? Where are you going? I think Thomas's question is an expression of frustration. He's just saying, come on, can you just give me a little bit more information? You're being a little bit vague here. I need a little bit more details. And so Jesus' response isn't one about the eternal destiny of people who have never heard about him. He's not talking about a big mission statement. He's just simply saying, for you that are followers of me, for you that are followers of truth, he talks to them, his followers. He talks to us, his followers. You don't need to fully understand this. You just simply, Jesus says, you just need to trust me. Don't look for any other way. All you need is me. All you're looking for is me. It's found in me. Jesus answers Thomas's question of we don't know the way. Look what he says. I am the way, the truth, and the life. The only way to the Father is through me. Think about this for just a moment. Jesus just told you that he's going to go away and you can't come with. And then he says, hey, you know how to get there, but you have no idea where he's going. And you need detailed information on how to meet up with him, but then he tells you, okay, just trust me, and you'll get there. What a difference from all the other religions in the world. Think about this. I mean, all of this information, all of these instructions, the world religions, they tell you all of these things and have you do all of this stuff. And Jesus is really clear. It's not about knowing information. It's not about having certain techniques. It's not about following instructions. It's about knowing Jesus. It's about being in a relationship with Jesus. Jesus says, I will get you to where you need to be. I have told you this all along. Jesus makes one of the most shocking statements right here in John 14:6 when he says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. The only way to the Father is through me. Now you might be able to miss a few things and not understand everything, but you got to get this. You got to get this. Jesus alone. Come on, say that with me. Jesus alone. He is the only way. Jesus is telling us He is the only way. You know, early on, Christianity, even in the book of Acts, it was given a name, a title. It wasn't called Christianity. It was following Jesus was called the way. Isn't that interesting? So I think because of its exclusivity, Jesus is the only way. And I brought this sign with me just to kind of make you think that way. That He is the one way, the only way, one way. Jesus claims this, and it's so controversial. I mean, if we were to take this and change it to Jesus is the one way, Jesus is the only way, and post it somewhere, whether it's online or somewhere on our building, somewhere here in San Diego, I think we would stir up a lot of controversy. And yet Jesus said it, but we would stir up a lot of controversy because there are a couple of myths that our culture has bought into. And if we're not careful as followers of Jesus, we might allow them to dilute our beliefs to some degree. The first myth is people say all religions are basically the same. Honestly, I mean, come on, let's just be real honest. I thought about this week. If you were to strip down world religions to just the bare minimums, just the essentials, fundamentally, let's just talk. Fundamentally, they kind of teach the same thing. I mean, which pushes the idea that it doesn't really matter which way you go because all religions lead to God. All religions lead to heaven. And what's interesting is this has been put into a metaphor of a mountain. With all of these paths, you may have seen this before, this image, all of these paths leading up to the top of the mountain where God is, or where heaven is, or where nirvana is. All of these paths leading up to this. But friends, unlike what culture says, just because all religious beliefs are equally tolerated doesn't mean that they're equally valid. There is common ground between many of the world's religions concerning basic values and morality. I mean, for instance, when it comes to the two other monotheistic religions in our world, one God religions, Judaism and Islam, okay? There are a lot of similarities. We have to admit that. But Christianity is different from all religions in that we don't have to climb the mountain to get to God. Did you hear me? We don't have to climb the mountain to get to where God is. God reached out to us. Get this. God came off the mountain to come and live with us to our level. Look what John, the writer John, says in the first chapter of John. We're in 14 right now. Back up to the first chapter of John. Look what he says. In the beginning there was the Word. The Word was with God, and the Word was God. He, say that with me, He, all of a sudden now we're starting to realize the Word is a He. He was with God in the beginning. All things were made by Him, and nothing was made without Him. The Word became a human and lived among us. We saw His glory, the glory that belongs to the only Son of the Father. Friends, listen, religions are based on man's effort to reach God, to climb the mountain. That we have got to do something or pray something or wear something or go somewhere. All of this, some religions require sacrifice or pain to become holy. Some religions, require people to crawl on their knees a certain distance. Some religions require worship on Friday or worship on Saturday or worship on Sunday or whatever. But in all of this, all the activity is on the man or the woman. Everything hangs on the heads of people. You got to do this to get there. But Jesus comes along and changes everything. Christianity is unique because of Jesus. We've seen this in Jesus' I am statements all the way through John. I mean, think about it. Come on. Religious leaders say, follow me and I will show you how to be enlightened. And Jesus comes along and says, I am the light of the world. Religious leaders say, follow me and I will show you the doors to heaven. And Jesus comes along and says, I am the door. I am the gate. Religious leaders say, follow me and I will show you how to find truth. And Jesus says, I am the truth. Right? Religious leaders come along and they say, follow me, I'll show you the way to God. Jesus says, I am the way. Did you know that no other religious figure in history made such a claim like this? It's true. Not Muhammad, not Buddha, not Confucius, not Abraham, not Moses. They claim to know the way to God. They've claimed to try to show the way to God. But did you know that none of them have claimed to be the only way to God? Jesus is unique. The Apostle Peter says, Jesus is the only one who can save people. His name is the only power. His name is Jesus, Brooke. Only power in the world that has been given to save people. We must be saved through him. The Apostle Paul says this, I love this. There is one God and one way, there it is, right? One way human beings can reach God. That way is through who? Jesus. So what does that do? That challenges another myth in our culture. The myth that says people say you can choose your own way to God. It's relativism. People like to see faith like ice cream. Anybody like ice cream? Okay. Take your pick. Whatever flavor you would like will work for you. Whatever flavor you like will get you to God. Why is it that we like to have our way? I have an idea. In fact, I have 4 ideas. I think it's because we like the way of least resistance. We want it to be easy and comfortable, not hard. Come on, life is hard already. I don't need it to be difficult to get to God. I just want it to be easy. Or it's because we like the way of least effort. We want a lot of return for a little bit of work. What do you mean I got to read all this stuff? Can I just give me like the Cliff Notes, man? What do you mean I got to go to church? What do you mean we like the way of least change. Let's be honest, we like to keep things the way they are. I'm not going to ask for a show of hands, but how many of us, we've been doing the same thing in our routine on mornings for a long time? Now, I've talked about this before, but I want to challenge your habits. Try to brush your teeth with the other hand tomorrow. See what happens. So weird. I say that because I'm having to do that right now. I can't have an electric toothbrush. I can't squeeze it. It hurts. So I'm over here and I'm like, It's like, it feels so weird to be doing it. And it's just a simple hand change. Okay? We are creatures of habit. We want the least amount of change. We want familiar things. Lastly, we like the way of least delay. Oh, man. We want it now. We don't want to wait. We don't want this long, drawn-out process. What do you mean God works only in process? No, come on. Can't he just change me right now? I don't want to have to go this long way. We rarely do that. We like to be able to choose our own way, but Jesus comes along and he says 14:6, I am the way, the truth, and the life. The only way to the Father is through me. Look at that. Look at that verse. He doesn't say, find your own way. He doesn't say, choose your own way. He doesn't say, look inside yourself for the way. He doesn't say, the way is whatever you make it to be. in a world of options, get this down. This is the truth. Jesus is the only way to God. Only. One way. Come on, say that with me. One way. One way. I got to tell you, if you want to learn the 8 noble truths, Buddha is the way. If you want to learn submission to Allah, Muhammad is the way. If you want to learn Old Testament law, Moses is the way. But if you want to know God, if you want to experience God the Father, if you want to experience God the Father in the future in heaven, but also here and now, Jesus is the only way. You can't get there any other way. You can't get there by being good. You can't get there by being religious. You can't get there by being sincere or by being devout. You can't get there by ceremony or knowledge or pedigree or earning it. There is no other way. This is Jesus' specialty. I am, read it with me, I am the way, the truth, and the life. The only way to the Father is through me. You can't get there any other way. Come on, one way. Come on, say it with me. One way. One way. Jesus is the only way to God. Listen. This is why it's so important for you. This is why it's so important. It's so important that you are in a relationship with Jesus. Because he is the only way. I don't know about you. I don't want the other option. I choose heaven. Anybody else like me in that? I mean, there's only 2 options. As far as I can tell, there's only 2 options. And I want to make heaven. I want to experience that 1,400-mile cube city. Right? I mean, I want to experience all that God wants to do in my life. And I know I talk a lot about sometimes, I want to talk to Peter and I want to talk to Paul and I'd love to say hi to my dad. And, all of these things that I'm telling you right now, friends, when we get there, it's not going to matter. We're going to experience God the Father and Jesus the Son and the Spirit of God all there. And all that he's going to do and all that he wants to do in our life. He's going to, and when you look at it, he's wanting to take us back to the way he originally created everything. Because he loves us. He wants to be in a relationship. You know the story? Remember when Adam and Eve, they blew it and they ate the fruit? They chose against God. Remember the story? It says that in Genesis that God came walking in the garden. And he says, Adam, where are you? Do you know why he says that? Because he wants to be in relationship with us. What's it like to be in that kind of relationship with God? I want you to know what we experience. If you've followed God for any length of time, you get to this point where it's like, it's so good. Today, there was one verse that spoke to me out of Revelation, and it was about the love of God. And it hit me that despite all of my stuff, all of my past, all of the bad choices and the stupid things that I did, and all of the sin in my past, that today, God loves me. And it's so rich and so overwhelming, that love of God. But this is just the broken form of it. We are not experiencing it like Adam did. And I can't tell you how many times I have said, Dad, my dad, you beat me to it. Now, I don't have a death wish. I'm not wanting to get there sooner than I need to get there. But the fact that he is able to experience God like that, I want that. And I don't want to miss out on that. And if Jesus is the way to that, I got to get Jesus in my life. And I got to keep him close and not let him go and not choose something else and not get distracted. He doesn't ever move. I'm the one that chooses to walk away and to get distracted and get detoured and all kinds of stuff and to miss him and not hear his voice. No, I got to lean into this. It's so important, friend, for you to know him. You know what else, though? If this is true, it's so important for the people you know that don't know God to know Jesus. You say, well, I'm praying for him. It's not enough. Do you want them to experience God? Do you want them to be in heaven? Whatever you're doing, I'm talking to me too, whatever we're doing for our friends and our family, it's not enough. If he is the only way, I've heard it said that if there was only one cure for all of cancer, if somebody came up with a cure and it was just a shot, let's say, but it cost millions of dollars, wouldn't you be doing everything you could do to save somebody that you know that has cancer? I would. Why not do everything we can to see that person get to heaven and know God? Not just in heaven, but know him here. Because doesn't Jesus just make life better? Like when you have Jesus in your life, doesn't he just make life better? I know our world is broken and life is hard, and we all know that. But doesn't he just make it better? And then on top of it, doesn't he just make you better at life? He makes me better at life. I mean, there are so many things that still need to be changed, but when I look back, I mean, there's this point, where the way I used to be and the way that I want to be is like way out here, and I can get really discouraged when I'm like, wow, that's way out there where I want to be. But sometimes God comes along and says, hey, just take a look back, though. See how far you've come. And you know what that's from? The grace of God, like your song, Brooke, because of his grace. I've changed. I'm not the same guy I used to be. I'm not the same guy I was last year. I've changed because Jesus changes my life. So he doesn't just make my life better. He makes me better at life. And my wife and my kids and people around me, they can attest to that. Yeah, you're a better guy now. You're a lot more patient than you used to be. Don't you want your friends and your family to have that? I do. So, on top of your praying for them, say, God, what do you want me to do? If you want me a part of this process in their life, open a door. Now, you got to be willing to go through that door. When the door opens up, you move. Do something. But ask him. Come on, open a door, God. You say, Bart, I don't know what to say to him. That's okay. I don't know what to say to people either. I just go. I just step into this relationship with him and I say, God, help me, please help me. And the best thing that you can do is just tell him about the Jesus that you know. What Jesus has done in your life. Let's pray. God, this is so important. It's so important for us to be in a relationship with you, and it is so important for us to help those around us to know you. So today, drive this home in our minds, in our hearts. Help us to make choices for you. Jesus, you are the way, the truth, and the life. The only way to the Father is through you. We believe that. And everybody said, amen. Come on, say it with me. Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. The only way to the Father is through me. Yeah, God bless you. Have a great day. Happy Mother's Day.